Every single year, millions of students walk into exam halls with the exact same hopes, clutching the exact same textbooks, and unfortunately, making the exact same mistakes. Welcome back to The Explainer. Look, today we're taking a serious but really empathetic look at a truly painful reality. You study hard, or at least you genuinely feel like you do, right? But when those results come back, they tell a completely different, frankly, heartbreaking story. It's incredibly frustrating to feel stuck in this endless loop of underperformance. But as we're going to see, breaking that cycle absolutely has to start with understanding why it happens in the first place.
Okay, let's dive right into this. If you've ever stared at a failing grade that looked more like a typo and thought, man, I'm just not smart enough, I need you to stop right there. Struggling students do not fail because they're fundamentally less intelligent. They fail because they rely on comfortable, predictable, and heavily researched errors. It's basically a cycle of repeating the wrong strategies on loop. Underperformance is not some permanent label stamped on your forehead, okay? It's just a symptom of how you study. And honestly, the best news, once we actually identify these core errors, we can absolutely fix them.
So, the first major roadblock? It doesn't even happen at your desk. It happens in your head. Mindset traps are the invisible barrier to success. Let's look at Carol Dweck's research from Stanford. She found two entirely different approaches to learning. Weak students almost always operate with a fixed mindset. They'll tell themselves, I'm just not good at math, or I'm fundamentally bad at languages, and they just accept it as this permanent law of the universe. They blame genetics, they blame the teacher, or they say the exam was literally impossible. It's all just a way to avoid the challenge and protect their ego. But in stark contrast, a growth mindset looks at abilities as something you actively build through dedication, a little bit of struggle, and smart strategies. If you're stuck in a fixed mindset, you are putting this massive, heavy ceiling right over your own potential. And let's be real, this mindset swings like a crazy pendulum, creating some absolute confidence killers. On one side, you've got blinding overconfidence. A student does okay one year, so they assume they'll just breeze through the next. They focus entirely on their favorite subjects, completely ignore the tough ones, and then, bam, nasty surprise on exam day. But on the exact opposite side of that pendulum, crippling low self-esteem. Students walk into that exam hall doubting themselves so heavily that they physically panic and bomb the test, even when they prepared well and literally know the material inside out.
So, how do we actually fix this broken confidence? Well, we do it through really honest self-assessment and some small, structured wins. First off, try mastering just one single topic deeply and build your momentum from there. Next, make it an unbreakable habit to sit down every week and write out 3 specific things you improved at. Seriously, no matter how small they are. And finally, you've got to change your internal vocabulary. The second you catch yourself saying, I can't do this equation, I want you to immediately reframe it to, I can't do this equation yet. I know it sounds deceptively simple, but it is an incredibly powerful psychological shift.
All right, so once your mindset is in a good place, we've got to look at your time. The illusion of productivity is exactly why your so-called hard work might actually be betraying you. The vast majority of struggling students rely way too heavily on passive rereading. You sit down, you read a textbook, you highlight everything in neon yellow until the page looks like a literal coloring book. You reread your notes, and you feel incredibly productive. But listen to me, this is a massive trap. Passive rereading just creates a false sense of familiarity. It's a total illusion of competence. You're basically turning your study session into a relaxing art project. What your brain actually needs to learn is active engagement. It needs methods that require friction, effort, and actual struggle to form strong, lasting memories.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. Let's look at the hard cognitive science. This is a genuinely mind-blowing finding from Jeffrey Karpik's studies. He found that self-testing just once is far more powerful than rereading 4 times. Just think about the sheer amount of time you could be saving. If you're just rereading the same paragraphs over and over, you are actively choosing the absolute least effective, most time-consuming method out there.
So the huge takeaway here is that you absolutely must transition to active recall. What does that mean? It means literally closing the textbook and testing yourself. You have to force your brain to pull that information back from memory. Use flashcards, answer practice questions entirely from scratch, or, my personal favorite, teach the concept out loud to an empty room, a pet, or even a stuffed animal like you're a college professor. Ditch the endless note copying and start prioritizing concise mind maps and actual, strenuous memory retrieval. But here's the catch. Even the absolute best techniques in the world won't work if you aren't actually present. 20%. Just let that number sink in for a second.
That is the shocking percentage of study time students report being actively distracted by their phones, social media, or the TV while they are supposedly working. That is literally 1/5 of your total effort completely thrown down the drain, and it directly, mathematically, drags down your exam scores.
And honestly, the damage from that distraction, it's so much worse than you might think. 23 minutes. That's exactly how long it can take your brain to actually regain deep concentration after a single tiny interruption from a text message. Multitasking entirely shatters your focus. You just cannot study while checking your notifications. The fix for this is super straightforward and absolutely non-negotiable. Put the phone in another room. Turn on Do Not Disturb. Use the Pomodoro technique. Do 25 minutes of hyper-focused, totally uninterrupted work, and then take a 5-minute break to let your brain properly recover.
This kind of focus naturally builds right into how we schedule things. Look at cramming the night before. It's a classic repeating error completely fueled by procrastination. It overloads your short-term memory, totally destroys your sleep cycle, and basically guarantees burnout. What you actually need is spaced repetition. This builds ironclad long-term retention by spacing out your review intervals over days and even weeks. Start early, break those massive topics into bite-sized daily sessions, and seriously, use digital tools like Anki to space out your flashcards automatically. It's a total game changer. But of course, preparation is really only half the battle. Let's step away from the desk and talk about the exam hall sabotage and the mistakes you might be making beyond the desk. A lot of critical errors happen way before you even start revising. Skipping class or just passively relying on teacher notes without reading wider puts you at an immediate disadvantage. You end up missing out on priming, which is just the simple act of skimming material before a lecture so your brain actually knows what's coming. But the absolute biggest trap, the fear of looking weak. Students won't ask for help when they're confused, which just allows their tiny knowledge gaps to widen into massive craters over time. And when they do practice, especially in subjects like math or physics, think about it. How many times have you glanced at a solution the absolute second you got stuck, nodded to yourself, and thought, oh yeah, I knew that? You are robbing yourself of the necessary struggle. Because if you look at the answers too early, you are just building false fluency. You think you know it, but you actually only know it when the answer is sitting right there in front of your face. You absolutely must practice full mock exams under timed conditions, completely without the mark schemes. Ignoring past papers is literally one of the quickest, most surefire ways to completely wreck your exam strategy. And then, finally, we reach exam day itself. You end up sabotaging your own hard work by studying late into the night when you're completely exhausted, or by skipping balanced meals just because you've got butterflies in your stomach. This directly drains your physical energy. And once you're sitting inside that hall, that physical drain leads straight to cognitive, careless errors. You don't read the questions fully, you write rambling, unstructured answers, you mess up your time allocation, and ultimately, you go into full-blown panic mode. All right, so we know the traps. We know all about the mindset issues, the passive study illusions, and the exam day sabotage. Now, how do we actually fix it? Let's get into the 7-day action plan so you can break the cycle today. Here are the absolute core steps to get you started. Step 1. Assess. Grab a past paper right now and brutally, honestly identify your weak areas. Don't just comfortably study what comes easy to you. You have to attack what is hard. Step 2. Plan. Map out a timetable specifically dedicating time to active recall, not just passive reading. Step 3. Build a daily routine. Morning reviews are incredibly fantastic for retention. Follow those up with the focused, phone-free study blocks we talked about earlier. And Step 4. Track and adjust. Every single week, sit down and analyze every mistake you made. Do not hide from them. Extract the lesson from every single one. But hey, remember, your brain is a biological organ. It needs regular maintenance to do its job. You absolutely have to get 7 to 9 hours of consistent sleep because that is when memory consolidation actually happens overnight. Combine that with healthy meals, light exercise, and some positive self-talk. Also, productive group work can be highly effective, but only if you set a strict agenda. Seek out a mentor, a tutor, or a study buddy who will genuinely quiz you and hold you accountable rather than just letting you socialize for 3 hours. The research on all of this is crystal clear. Active strategies, lower distraction, and distributed practice strongly, undeniably predict better performance. Consistency beats intensity every single time. Small daily improvements compound massively over the course of a semester. Listen, the students who switch to these evidence-based methods see dramatic turnarounds. And it's not because they suddenly woke up as a genius. It's simply because they finally stopped repeating weak, ineffective strategies. You have the complete power to change your academic trajectory right now. This cycle of underperformance only continues if you allow it to. So, I'm going to leave you with this one question. Look at the habits we've outlined today. Which specific mistake are you going to stop making right now? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Reflect on your habits, implement the plan, and I will see you next time as we continue to break down the science of success.